coming alive!
For me!
Yes, she's for you.
Yes, for me. For me! The bride of Frankenstein.
No, just the bride.
Welcome to Now Playing Podcast's retrospective covering The Bride.
The new woman, independent, free, as bold and as proud as a man. A woman equal to ourselves.
Hosted by Brock.
Yes, I'm a man, in every sense of the word, if you catch my drift.
Arnie.
Here's a man that's been mistreated in his life.
And Stuart.
You're a man to be reckoned with in my books. You're a man of virtue.
This episode will contain detailed plot spoilers and strong language.
Scared?
We hope you enjoy the show.
One day, Cleval, she will astonish you.
Today we're discussing The Bride! Starring Jessie Buckley, Christian Bale, Peter Sarsgaard, with Annette Bening, with Jake Gyllenhaal, and Penelope Cruz, directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal. Here comes the motherfucking podcast host, Arnie.
And Stuart.
I would prefer not to. This is Brock.
But we're going to anyway.
But you must, yes. We are going to insist, because you have joined us for Universal Monsters. You were on the last couple Frankenstein shows, and I guess this one counts. It is the 90th anniversary since that actress appeared with streaks in her bouffant hair. I guess this is some kind of celebration of movies, and it's not a Universal picture. It almost was a Netflix movie. This movie had a troubled production history. It bounced around a lot, but at this point, it's Warner Brothers.
I watched a lot of interviews with Maggie Gyllenhaal and Jessie Buckley, and this was filmed right before she did Hamnet. She walked off the set of this and onto the set of Hamnet. And because this is a big Warner Brothers picture, Maggie Gyllenhaal talked about how she had to do things she'd never done before, like test screenings of random people in malls and getting feedback cards. She'd never done that before. She's directed before, she's acted, and in none of those roles did she have to deal with test audiences. And she said this film is muted from what it was. It's not as violent, it's not as out there as it was because the studio said, look, these cards are saying you can't be this violent. The audience does not want to see so much violence towards women. So what we're seeing here is not necessarily her original artistic intent, but a little bit of a compromised vision because it did go through that studio system.
I could have told you that just watching the movie. I think some of the chaos is intentionally baked into the cake, and some of it is second guessing and people above the director saying this should come out or this should come in. I'm going to have those curiosities, particularly about the ending when we get there. But it's worth pointing out, Maggie Gyllenhaal, we've talked about her some as an actress, but she has made one film for Netflix with Jessie Buckley. I'm wondering if either of you saw The Lost Daughter.
I did see it, and I loved it. Olivia Colman's really good in it. That's how I pretty much discovered Jessie Buckley, went back and saw that I'd seen her in other things. She's just a great actress. But if you haven't seen The Lost Daughter, I recommend it. It's quite a good watch.
I haven't seen that, and the only thing I've seen Jessie Buckley in, I still want to see Hamnet. I haven't yet. The only thing I've seen her in was that Chernobyl miniseries, which was very good, but that's all I know her from.
She's waiting for a breakout moment. I think Hamnet is it, but she's been in a lot of artistic, smaller stuff. She was in a very memorable season of Fargo as a killer nurse. And Men, I don't know if you saw the A24 horror movie in which all men are attacking her.
No, but I saw this one where that's exactly the same thing.
This could almost be seen as a continuation of said project. So you can see why she would have signed on. And yeah, I think this movie was greenlit at a time when there was a reckoning in Hollywood, right? Women wanted more power, more control. This is not only directed, but written by Maggie Gyllenhaal. This is her vision. And in that respect, it made it more interesting for me to want to sit down with this. And I will say most of my audience, it wasn't a crowded one, but I went twice. I saw it on an IMAX and I saw it again on a matinee. And in both cases, it was predominantly women coming to this project.
This was filmed with IMAX in mind. There are IMAX ratio dance scenes during this movie. And when I saw it was filmed for IMAX, I'm like, okay, I want to see it there. And I was going to a laser IMAX projection AMC. I'd say it was predominantly male and predominantly empty.
Yeah, neither screening was particularly large.
And then I did go and see this again. I went to the Alamo.
Oh, jeez.
And people who know I have a grudge against Alamo Drafthouse.
Do we have to have this conversation again?
If you've watched our intermission episode, you know I have a issue with Alamo Drafthouse. I didn't go to Alamo Drafthouse. I went to the Alamo. I'm in San Antonio recording this, and right next door to the Alamo is an AMC with IMAX.
Oh, you and Pee Wee Herman. Okay.
Watch it in the basement. Yeah.
So I saw this at the AMC, which was a much bigger IMAX than the one I had in Dallas. I mean, this was one of those like 100-foot floor-to-ceiling screens, like one of the biggest IMAX screens you can see. So I got to see this twice. There's stuff to be gained from a second viewing.
Yeah, my viewing was maybe 10 of us there, most of the people male, and it was a very muted crowd. I don't know if they knew what they were getting into. I did not know getting into this. I had no idea this was going to be a gangster movie. Like, I just didn't see the preview. So I had no idea what this was about. Obviously, I knew the Bride of Frankenstein, but how they're going to do it. I had nothing going in.
Warner Brothers knows, right? This was positioned initially as a Thanksgiving movie, like up against Wicked and all of that. And then all of a sudden, nope, we're putting this out in March. That is a vote of no confidence. They realized after the tinkering, after the comment cards, they did not have Poor Things on their hands. They did not have something that was going to be weird but commercial. So I think it's coming out now to capitalize on Buckley's presumed Oscar win this weekend for Hamnet.
I personally believe that Warner Brothers greenlit this and looked at a major release date based on the success of Joker, and that I believe they moved the release date and cut their losses as a response to Joker 2.
It's interesting you bring up Joker because some of the principals here, the cinematographer, the person doing the score, also worked on those Joker films.
When I see fake brides running through the streets in a riot, I can't not think of the climax of that first Joker film. It felt like it was punching me in the face.
Yeah, I think Joker is a perfect example of a little art movie that somehow had massive commercial appeal. They had faith after Gyllenhaal, her little first movie, was so successful artistically that she was able to translate that into some kind of Joker success. I don't even think this is going to get Joker 2 money.
Oh yeah, forget Here Comes the Motherfucking Bride. It's Here Comes the Motherfucking Bomb. This thing made $7 million opening weekend. Half of the $15 million that was forecast, and $15 million would have been a total disaster. This thing cost like $90 million to make. I mean, even global, this thing made $13 million. Somebody in the C-suite's freaking the fuck out on this one.
Yes, this is a very expensive movie. Again, IMAX cameras, the costuming in this. You can see the money on screen. Again, it just feels like the bride is eloping. Maybe the audience we're really talking to are the people that are going to discover it in home viewing.
Quite possibly, because I couldn't believe this got an IMAX showing. Truthfully, this feels like a smaller movie. And when I saw it was screening in IMAX, I figured if there's a new Pixar film, that's going to own all the IMAX screens. But they did give this some later showings. The early showings in the day were Pixar. The evening showings were this. The evening showings were empty. There were 8 of us in a 500-seat auditorium by the Alamo AMC in the entire theater. And we all sat kind of in a weird cluster near each other, the center seats. And I kept hearing the people behind me. The guy kept asking his, I presume, girlfriend or wife, what did he say? What did he say? What are they doing? Why is this happening? I mean, he couldn't understand Christian Bale's words, and he couldn't understand what the hell was going on screen.
You know, I saw it twice, and they do have showings with closed captioning. I wish I had gone to one.
You know, I do wish that we were reviewing this almost a year from now after I had a chance to read some Herman Melville and to research every free associative, literary, and film reference going on in this movie.
This is a movie that invites rewatch and spending time with, and it's not the popcorn blockbuster Bride of Frankenstein movie that Warner Brothers might have hoped that she would make. If it's found at all, it will be discovered by a small cult on home screenings. And so, yeah, all we can do, I think, this weekend is just try to wonder what we're watching and what might have been the intent that has been changed. So with that said, Arnie, why don't you try to dig in there and find the plot?
Jessie Buckley plays both Mary Shelley, a spirit in the afterlife, and a Chicago woman named Ida. The year is 1936, and Ida is an escort running in a circle of gangsters who report to mob boss Lupino. But several of these escorts, including Ida, have been working with the cops, giving information to bring down the mob. But one night at a dinner with the mobsters, Ida's body is possessed by the ghost of Mary Shelley, 2 minds in one body. So Ida starts babbling in an English accent and infers she is an informant, prompting a mobster named Clyde, played by John Magaro, to push her down the stairs. Ida is killed in the fall, her neck and her leg is broken. But Ida would be resurrected by Dr. Cornelia Euphronius, played by Annette Bening. She's a scientist researching the reanimation of dead bodies. Then she's visited by Frankenstein's monster, who has taken on the name of Frankenstein himself, played by Christian Bale. This Frank is very lonely and convinces Euphronius to help him create a bride. They dig up Ida's body, knowing nothing about her past, and Euphronius's methods bring her back to life. But the black serum stains her skin, leaving a splotch on her face and her hands and her tongue. This bride of Frankenstein has no memory of her previous life, but she rebels against being kept locked in Euphronius's house. So she and Frank sneak out one night where Frank takes her to a rom-com musical movie starring his favorite actor, Ronnie Reed, played by Jake Gyllenhaal. After the movie, the two go to a club where 2 guys start to sexually assault the bride. Frank kills the 2 assailants, but they were photographed, and so they go on the run, leaving Chicago for New York. While hiding on a train, the bride pushes a cop off the moving train, killing him. And during their travels, the bride keeps asking Frank about their past together. He creates a fiction in which her name was Penelope, and she and he were a couple who got engaged. But some things about Frank's story don't add up for this bride. They're pursued by Chicago detective Jake Wiles, played by Peter Sarsgaard, and his assistant Myrna Malloy, played by Penelope Cruz. They find the dead body in Indiana and follow Frank and his bride to New York City, which was the train's final destination. In New York, Frank and his bride enjoy some time together, but when they go to see another movie, the bride sees a man assaulting his girlfriend in the theater. The bride stops him, and so he calls her and Frank out as the wanted monster murderers. Frank and the bride sneak into a swanky party to hide, pretending to be staff, but Frank can't keep his identity a secret when he sees his idol Ronnie Reed there. Frank approaches Reed, who blows off the awkward giant, so Frank and the bride lead the party in a massive dance to Putting on the Ritz. I'm going to repeat. Frank and his bride lead the party in a massive dance to Putting on the Ritz.
We'll get there.
The cops burst in to arrest Frank, but the bride puts a gun to Reed's head to help Frank escape. In the chaos, the bride shoots and kills a cop, but Frank and the bride escape. They steal a car and flee, traveling from city to city, all of which were featured in Ronnie Reed movies. The bride's speech in front of the cops and her rebelling cause a wave of women to imitate the bride, using makeup to put splotches on their face, donning black veils, and arming themselves against an oppressive society. All of this action alerts Lupino that this informant is still alive, so he sends Clyde after her to kill her, again, and bring him back her tongue. Eventually, Wiles and Malloy catch up to them in Niagara Falls. There, Wiles confronts the bride, who he calls Ida. Wiles was the cop Ida had worked with to bring down Lupino, but Wiles took a mob bribe to kill the investigation. When Ida tried to keep the case alive, Wiles and Ida started having sex. With this information now known by Malloy, Wiles resigns from the force and gives Malloy his detective's badge. Frank and the bride escape again, but the bride now knows that Frank has been gaslighting her. She breaks up with him, causing Frank to have one of his multiple panic attacks. To calm him, she takes him to a drive-in movie. There, she declares her name is not Ida, not Penelope, but just the bride, and she and Frank come to some sort of understanding. But Malloy was waiting for them, knowing Frank's penchant for movies, and cops shoot Frank in the head, killing him. The bride escapes with Frank's body and returns to Euphronius's lab in Chicago, hoping the doctor can bring her beloved back to life, but Euphronius refuses. Then Clyde bursts in and shoots the bride. Cops storm the lab and also riddle the bride and Frank with bullets. Malloy stops the chaos, has the cops arrest Clyde, and leaves the bodies of Frank and the bride with Euphronius, who resurrects them both. And we see in an end credits scene that Wiles has teamed up with a group of bride wannabes who've taken Lupino hostage and are torturing him, as credits roll.
Yeah, you said a lot there, and in fact, this whole thing could be seen as one giant, one-woman show, right? One big monologue. We're going to start with Jessie Buckley in the dark, launching into, I was thinking of Rich Little. There's all these voices, there's all of this imitation. Arnie, you're right. You could almost footnote this movie. It's so academic. There will be so much referencing of the 20th century and the 19th century. I think the theme is feminism. Whatever the connection is, we'll put that as our North Star, right? All of this is in service of where feminism is, where it's going, what has happened. They are saying, and I don't think I ever thought of Mary Shelley as being this, but Mary Shelley is the pioneer of feminism. By writing 1818 Frankenstein and not being able to totally articulate her feminist message, she nevertheless got the ball rolling.
Yeah, in the beginning of this movie, they say Mary Shelley, in big letters, Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein on a dare. And while that is maybe historically accurate, even in college, when we talked about this movie, it was very much that she started this, and they took, 50 years until the 1920s for other female writers. There was Emily Dickinson, there was Jane Austen, the Bronte sisters.
It's hard to condense all of women's literature into one moment of when it exploded. It's interesting that Gyllenhaal has said that moment is Mary Shelley. That, to me, is not where it started.
It's more interesting because Frankenstein was published anonymously because they didn't want a woman's name on the cover, and only after it was popular did they come out and go, all right, we'll say a woman wrote this and it's second printing.
Right. And I don't think she was the first to do that. George Eliot comes to mind. I didn't think of Mary Shelley as being the first, but certainly you can make the argument, and since this movie is a Frankenstein movie, it makes sense to start here, that this is the story of a woman trying to find her voice. She started anonymously in 1818 trying to say something about marriage and this creature that was created to be the bride for a monster and couldn't quite articulate it. One thing I think that's really interesting about this opening is Mary Shelley almost describes, I tried to write a sequel and it became a tumor in my brain that killed me, right? That she literally, in trying to think about what she didn't get into that book, that she wanted to get out into the world, it became something that killed her. And now, and this is interesting, she says, I've been in this place for centuries. This void, wherever she's existing, centuries means she would at least be in current day. We're talking 2026. She is now telling us the story of her sequel.
Yeah, I looked her up. She died in 1851. So if she was there for centuries, she's in our future, if it's centuries plural, even though this is taking place, the main body of this movie, in 1936. But what Gyllenhaal is also doing here is echoing Universal Pictures' Bride of Frankenstein. Because if you remember that one, Elsa Lanchester, who played the Bride of Frankenstein, had no lines, had the great hair, had the great shriek, also started that movie playing Mary Shelley, sitting around the table and saying, oh, but I have a second tale for you, and introducing that movie. So here, they're bringing that back. I like the cinematography, the way it's black and white with that all black background. I love Jessie Buckley's delivery of these lines. It's a hell of a monologue and she's chewing it up. On the second viewing, her bursts of laughter annoy the shit out of me. It's just big, but she does really well except for those laughs.
I love the cinematography of this. I loved how it was lit. I couldn't quite tell it was her. until the movie starts proper, right? When she starts having the possession and she starts speaking like Mary Shelley, I'm like, oh, this has to be the same actress. There's no way another actress could possibly imitate the exactness of the voice that Mary Shelley was putting on in the beginning of the movie. So yes, I found it very entertaining. I couldn't follow everything that she was saying, but I was enjoying what she was doing and how she was presenting it.
Yeah, she starts with a knock-knock joke. I mean, this is all over the map.
But I think that's the point. This is the story about a woman trying to find her voice, right? What am I trying to say? Even she doesn't know. One of the things she says is, I couldn't even think it back in 1818. I've had centuries to contemplate, and now I'm ready to tell you what wasn't in Frankenstein in a sequel. The sequel is coming. Now, here's the crazy part of this. The idea of setting Frankenstein in 1936 with gangsters and Bonnie and Clyde kind of lovers on the run violence is not a sequel I would have ever imagined anyone ever telling, much less Mary Shelley.
I agree. And to be perfectly honest, because of the title of this movie, I did think it was going to be a very loose, but still yet a remake of that Sting movie we reviewed.
Oh, God.
I mean, it's called The Bride. I mean...
Yes, the same name. That's about where the similarities end.
I think there's a couple, but fortunately, there's no Christian Bale at a circus. That would have been something else, but... I think they're both feminist themes. Remember, in that Sting movie, he wanted to make a bride that was equal to a man, even though that was 19th century, and then she wanted to be her own woman. I think there's some parallels in the intent behind the two movies, but yes, once this is happening, I'm 2 viewings in, and I'm very confused by this whole thing. She's been centuries in the afterlife, but 70 years have passed in our world.
I think you're being too literal. I think she's telling the movie audience in 2026, I'm here in this void. Centuries after my 1818 novel, I'm ready to tell you the sequel, is the way I take it.
I took it as she was in 1936 here because she says, I've been here for centuries, but now I see a crack, a way out. And I can't decide if Mary Shelley possesses this prostitute coincidentally or intentionally, knowing that the prostitute is minutes from death.
Well, let's dig into that. I'll start by saying I don't know that prostitute feels like the right word. She's an escort. She has been sent by a police officer to be at this table in a Chicago restaurant to listen in as her mobster companions talk about Vita Lupino. I don't know if she's actually giving up her body for sex, but she's a mole. She's a spy. And what's interesting is Mary Shelley's sequel is, in fact, kind of a detective story, a noir story. It's a little early for film noir. Maltese Falcon didn't come to the screen until 1941. This is 1936, but this movie's loose with dates, obviously. So I think we're to think of Mary Shelley conceiving Frankenstein 2 as some kind of feminist Dashiell Hammett.
I did not get she was a prostitute. I did get she was an escort or a mole. I did not understand that they were all mobsters until halfway through the scene. That was not very clear either. But what I did see in the scene was that obviously the way she shot it was Jessie Buckley is in orange and everybody else is in very muted colors. And nobody, and I mean nobody in this scene is a traditional looking movie star looks. All of them are character actor looks. It's a very drab looking group. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder is definitely through this whole thing too, and there is nobody here that you would be like, oh, who is that? And it is really an amazingly interesting choice. Do I think it's clear that she's a mole at this moment? No. They drop it in the dialogue. We're talking about so many things fly so quickly. I did not get she was a mole until much later in the movie.
You're not supposed to.
Oh, okay, good. Thank God. I thought I missed something.
No. I'm jumping ahead by revealing that. We just see her as a woman that Mary Shelley describes as being a good girl and being quiet while the men around her are being boorish and baited the women into eating oysters and kissing each other and being very brutish in their sexuality.
But to my point is that all these guys, the big guy and that little guy who end up killing her in the stairwell in a few minutes, they don't look like mobsters that we would normally think of as mobsters.
Yes, they do. They look like stereotypical mobsters. They look like every 30s gangster. They look like they're on that black and white movie from Home Alone. Keep the change, pal. Especially the big guy. Just reeks of 30s gangster.
The head boss guy.
No, not Lupino. The guy who's making her eat the oyster.
The fatter guy with the facial deformity.
I don't agree with that at all.
Oh my God, I'm sitting there the very first time I watched this, I'm like, she's there with gangsters. I mean, the way they talk, the way they look, their demeanor. I'm like, okay, she is a gangster's girlfriend. And then later they call her an escort. An escort is often a nice name for a prostitute. The big thing here is they can't say no to what these mobsters want. I don't want to eat an oyster. Oysters make me sick. Just say yes. And so whatever the mobsters want, these women do. Kiss this other woman. Okay, I'll kiss this other woman because we can't say no. Stuart, you asked if she's sleeping with these mobsters. She has got no agency to say no to these mobsters. And I do believe Lupino later says this was Clyde's girlfriend on the side from Clyde's wife. And Clyde's like, oh, now I have a baby and no time for a girlfriend after they kill her. But this is Clyde's girl.
Yeah, the side piece, yes. And Clyde is played by John Magro. I've seen him before. If you saw Past Lives, he was one of the choices for the female lead. He was the modern day guy. He pops up in things.
I saw him in that Michael Fassbender show where he played a nebbish guy at the desk who wanted to be in the field, and he was in over his head. And I never think of him as somebody who has presence. He's like a nebbish kind of guy. So again, him being a gangster was kind of weird for me because he doesn't seem like he has the confidence or the wherewithal to be a gangster. He kind of feel like he was a shrinking violet a little bit here for me.
I got a little Peter Lorre off of him. I mean, just a little bit. I think they were going for that anyway. I think we're supposed to. I think Arnie is right that we're supposed to feel like these guys are mobsters. Now, keep in mind, timelines are weird. I always think of Chicago mob being the 20s. Prohibition, 1936, we're well beyond that. But it's not Al Capone's Chicago. It is this Vito Lupino. And what gets her in trouble? Yeah, she makes a big scene. Mary Shelley makes her perform sexual acts on top of this table. But when she points to this mob kingpin and says, there's your real monster, that's what gets her dragged out of the restaurant.
And she's saying she's going to sing like a canary. I mean, a lot of words are coming out of her mouth, but if you are a mob boss and worried about what people might turn you in for, hearing the words sing like a canary is probably enough to get the mob boss to kill you.
Okay, so this movie, technically speaking, great costumes, great art direction. You might not be able to soak it all in, though, because there's this very choppy, whip pan, fast-cutting style. And so I bring this up in this moment to underline the fact that I'm curious to know what you guys see here. The first time I saw it, I think John Magro, Clyde, pushes her down the stairs for being an outspoken woman that's ratting on his boss. The second time I watch it, I hear Mary Shelley preparing this woman for what she's got to do. And it almost feels like she leaps into the part of becoming the bride, that she commits suicide so that she can become self-actualized.
The first time I saw it, I thought she fell and he was reaching for her because his arms go out. The second time I saw it, I think it's very clear that when she is babbling on and says everything's going to change and she's going to bring this down, he shoves her.
Yeah, I saw shove too.
I'm not sure. It feels like it's part of the mystery of this movie, of whether it's his fault or her fault. If you hear Mary Shelley's words, she's coaching this woman to give up on this life and become what she's going to be.
I mean, she's talking about her tome of horror, Frankenstein, and a sequel is coming. Everything will change. I have a lot more to say. Are you ready? A revolution is coming. Frankenstein frightened you. My next story will make you stand up and yell help. And then he shoves her. As Ida, she was nothing but a victim of a corrupt cop, a victim of a bunch of mobsters, and it's only through rebirth that she finds her agency. I do love this fall down the stairs. I mean, the score is going great. The slow motion breaking of the neck and the leg, the crunching, and then we get the name literally up in lights, The Bride, in big light bulb letters.
But I want to underline something in terms of dates here that feels important. 1936, women already had the right to vote for about 20 years. This is not a woman coming in and changing things for women. Women had been writing books and speaking out and doing extraordinary things for decades prior to this woman. Why Mary Shelley feels like this is the vessel for her feminist outrage is curious. I think it's because this character will be violent. Unlike previously, where people can be outspoken, this is a character that will ultimately, although not totally in this cut, choose to murder and kill and bite out tongues.
Our knowledge of Bonnie and Clyde will be referenced throughout the second half of this movie. At this time, Bonnie had already existed. They already have an example of a single violent female, very notorious in American history, right? So it's not unheard of, but it's certainly very rare, I would have to think, for this timeline.
I'm going to just put it out there since we're talking about this. I don't want to be overly negative about this movie, but the movie that I kept thinking of when I was watching this was the latest Black Christmas remake and Brock's term of the message mallet and how ham-fisted this ill-conceived feminist notion is in this film. The timeline is wrong for it. The delivery is wrong of it. It's an important message. I don't want to undermine that. But you literally have this woman screaming, "Me too!" You just need to add hashtag "Me too!" And it's just so clumsy that I'm disappointed in Maggie Gyllenhaal for trying to make a pro-woman statement and fumbling it so badly with timelines and delivery.
I will agree the message is muddled and sometimes overstated. We can argue about whether that's tampering. I will say that there's something more subtle here than a mallet. I'll try to articulate what I'm seeing as we go through. It's not all as brazenly feminist, capital F, as you suggest. There is rather a criticism of Me Too movement.
I don't see that, but this is why I brought it up now, is because I believe Maggie Gyllenhaal made a feminist manifesto, a female Joker film, whereas Joker could be seen as toxic masculinity. This could be seen maybe as toxic femininity. And so I feel like I need to bring up that I feel that's this whole movie's point, and it was done poorly in order to then reference it throughout this review.
And I think the studio was nervous about that. You don't want to alienate half your audience if half your audience is men, and they thought maybe some of this was coming off as shrill and man-hating. I actually hear criticism of the women's movement and what this bride will do. But it gets lost in an ending that has been chopped to bits. So I hear what you're saying, but I think there is another movie in here that I'd like to resuscitate. And let's meet Frank.
Christian Bale, he was one of the reasons I was interested in this film. I literally would have gone and seen this film opening weekend, even if we weren't covering it, because I thought the trailer looked exciting. I thought the Bonnie and Clyde thing looked interesting. And Christian Bale is a big enough actor to not do junk. He picks and chooses his roles very carefully. Not always does he pick great projects, but I feel like he chooses more prestige work overall. Even when he's doing Batman, it's a prestigious Batman. It's a more artsy Batman.
Thor, Arnie, Thor. What about Terminator Salvation? What about Reign of Fire?
Thor, you're right. I forgot he was in it. That's a direct paycheck.
He had a mortgage to pay or something for Terminator Salvation.
I get Arnie's point. He is a risk taker like Daniel Day-Lewis. If he's in a commercial project, he usually has his own aims, and it's almost an accident that he's there.
Yeah, I concede. Arnie is correct. Christian Bale makes me look at something absolutely right. He always finds something interesting to do, and he has shown in the past that he will absolutely do what it takes to be in a role. We all know that, so yes, I concede. I just thought it'd be funny to bring up Thor.
No, you're right. He does take a paycheck role. This didn't look like a paycheck role when I saw what he was doing in the trailers. This voice of his, though, that he does. I mean, he is from the UK. He does have a Welsh accent. But what he's doing here, at times, is Forrest Gump. And at times, it reminded me of the Thermians from Galaxy Quest. And at times, I just couldn't understand at all what he was saying. It's a big swing. It is a big performance. Bravo for the bravery to actually do this. Because I admire actors. Because even in a set, to act this foolish would just be something hard for me to do. And I really love and hate his Frankenstein simultaneously. I love how big he's going, and yet I feel it's Razzie worthy.
What? Okay, let me take this on then. How else are you going to do Frankenstein? This feels like in the long tradition of people that have to put on scars and bolts and murr. He's not particularly articulate. He's had 100 years. He is a 100-year-old man. He has existed since 1818 when the book was published and has somehow come from that book into this quote-unquote real world to try and find a cure for his loneliness. And I think he doesn't look foolish at all. He looks very sad. He looks tragic. He looks like someone that is wounded by the world. And I have a lot of empathy for him as he stumbles to Chicago and the institute run by Annette Bening.
I thought the way he uses language and how formal he is in a lot of situations, especially in the beginning of the movie, I found him to be much more articulate than a lot of other Frankensteins we've seen. I also found his accent to be inconsistent throughout the movie, and at times sounded like Robert De Niro's Frankenstein.
Yeah, it did.
I was thinking about that one more than Clancy Brown. But what is the answer, Arnie? If you're going to make Frankenstein a major dramatic performance, is Elordi the only way to go?
I think you don't go this rubber-faced, this big. It's a weird conception. I think he's embodying the character Gyllenhaal wrote. I mean, this guy is obsessed with movie musicals, and here's what's odd is you say he stepped off the page, but yet here we get Annette Bening as Dr. Cornelia Euphronius, and she goes, I'm familiar with Frankenstein's works.
As a scientist, not Mary Shelley's book.
Yeah, exactly. So here, this isn't like
Stranger Than Fiction. Postmodern, I stepped out of a book.
Exactly. There was a Dr. Frankenstein. He did create a monster. The monster was presumed dead from a mob attack, I guess. And here he is in Chicago in the 30s. But Mary Shelley is telling us a sequel to her book that takes place in the book's universe, but it's also meta because Mary Shelley is in the universe, commenting on the universe. It's strange, and I kind of like it for that, though.
I mean, again, you better like postmodernism because this is the style of this movie. It is always self-referencing other movies and other literary works. And yes, it doesn't have a linear timeline, which again, to me says art movie. I can't believe they gave her $100 million to make this challenging, modest, non-traditional horror movie.
Again, I'm telling you, everything's about the elevator pitch. She said female Joker. They said how much of a check?
Yeah.
I also think, though, that Barbie might have something to do with this. Sarah Polley's movie that Jessie Buckley is in, Women Talking. There's a lot of recent movies that when Maggie Gyllenhaal did pitch this, because this took years, right, to do, I think that there was definitely a movement there.
Frances McDormand, famously when she won her Oscar, says women need to take control and took studio heads to challenge for not giving them the roles of writers and directors. And so there was pressure to produce major works from women.
And Maggie's first movie was successful in a lot of different ways, maybe not financially successful, but definitely was well received. So she would definitely get this chance. $80 million, $200 million chance is a big swing, right? But she's also Maggie Gyllenhaal. She has proven herself on the screen time and again, and she has ideas.
Yeah, it's a weird world, and you may wrestle with it. I come in and out of it. I feel like there are times where this movie feels clever, smart, nailing something, and then there are times where I feel like it's clumsy, lost, unsure of its footing.
I can't agree with you more. There are certain things that I loved the choices they make. I do like some illusions, and then they hit you over the head with it, again, with certain other things, and then some of the references I did not agree with. So yes, I think it's a little bit muddled. I thought it was uneven, but in this beginning, I'm all in. Like the Annette Bening with Christian Bale, the two of them together, their acting together was just insanely good.
I think they gave her some fake teeth to really,
Yes, that is not her dental work. Yes, correct.
Because if not, she needs some dental work.
Yes.
But it changed the shape of her face a little bit, and it really made her look like the mad scientist Frank is going to say she is. I love her delivery here. Again, across the board, the acting in this is incredible. And these scenes between Annette Bening and Christian Bale are electric.
It's mentioned he is looking for the author of a research about something called reinvigoration. And he is presuming it's a man, and it's a surprise to him that Dr. C. Euphronius is Cornelia, is Annette Bening. And so that's a moment of humility where he realizes, oh, okay, I have found who I'm looking for, and it's not in the package I imagined. Can you help me solve loneliness? And yeah, I love the way that Annette Bening responds to that, because we'll find out she is lonely. She lost her husband. She is grieving a death that she lived twice, right? She brought her husband back from the dead and then had to put him down. She very much understands loneliness. I love her response. She's just like, everyone's lonely. Why should you be any different? But ultimately, he does sell her on the idea, if you're a mad scientist, you're willing to take mad risks, right? You're willing to dig up bodies, hook the street lights up to them, and go for it.
Yes, this is the first of many instances in this film where male characters are going to underestimate female characters. Mostly this is going to be seen through Penelope Cruz's character, but again and again, men look for men to do things. One of the lines that fat mobster says in the very beginning when Ida is kissing the other woman is, I hate to see a woman taking a man's job. And that's what we're seeing here. It starts with Annette Bening being assumed that doctor would be a male. And then 2 viewings, I'm trying to pick up what Christian Bale says. Because Annette Bening says no, and he goes to see a movie. And it's one of the Jake Gyllenhaal's Ronnie Reed pictures. Then he goes and sees like a dance club or something.
A gay bar.
Is it a gay bar?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then he goes back to Annette Bening and says something about having his first experience. And he had said the day before he had never had carnal pleasures and things for 100 years, never found a woman, never hired a prostitute. I mean, Annette Bening basically is saying, just hire a prostitute if you want to fuck.
There's better ways of getting sex than reviving a corpse, yes.
But when he comes back to her after the movie and the gay club, the exact words he says is, for me, that was the first time ever. And I'm like, the first time for what?
I agree. It's a really important moment that I couldn't hear. This is, again, the subtitles moments where you're like, I don't know, Arnie. I think he was moved that she took him in, that she's like, you're a monster, but I'm going to let you stay in the Institute with me. And I assumed that was the first time he was speaking to, the first time that he had experienced that kind of welcoming kindness from a woman. I don't know. Is it related to the gay bar? We'll talk about the gay bar later, but I don't think so.
But hey, he does call her a mad scientist, and she empathizes with his loneliness, as we'll find out later on why. It's a wonderful, gorgeous blue night under a full moon, and we're digging up a body out of a pauper's grave. This is deserving of a Universal movie.
And there's those red boots, right? She showed off her red boots. We know it's Jessie Buckley anyway. But of course, when they're bringing the corpse up, this could have had a couple other false starts. But we know when we see the red boots that he's found his bride, and that soon, yes, there are metal pipes being hooked up to her heart. And this, they call it like a crystalloid solution, but it's like this black ink that comes in these IV bags that is going to fill her body with blood. And it makes me think, again, if this is about literature and writing and finding a voice, she's almost filled with the ink and will spew forth her story.
Nice. I like that one. I also liked the drop the line. I don't understand why you have to cobble bodies together. Just use one body. That's something I said on our podcast recently. So I'm like, yes, thank goodness. But also it's a shortcut for the movie. Would it have been handy to put a different leg on her? Sure.
They didn't know it was broken until she was back to life. I mean, she tries to stand up and falls, and then they're like, oh shit, your leg's bad.
They'll make a point about that later, that he comes from a void of nothingness. He wasn't even born, right? He was assembled piecemeal, whereas she has this other life that will be hidden from her. We are now entering Act 2. She is going to come back to life, and everyone is going to gaslight her and make her believe that she was intended always, that she chose the life with Frank.
But Frankenstein gets panic attacks in this telling of the story. He's a neurotic Frankenstein, and he gets so excited that he can't pull the lever. He and Euphronius have to pull the lever together to bring her back to life, and then he's just like, you can sleep in my bed.
He doesn't have much game, you know?
He has no game at all. And it was also a little bit jarring. yes, he's smitten because he has a chance. I thought he looked horny. There's a whole bunch of things going on here, but in hindsight, this was like version 2 of Frankenstein that we're going to see in this movie. It's almost like disparate characterizations. There are certainly threads between them, but the swings go left and right, and here it was endearing. It was gentle and a little bit off-putting, but at the same time, I find it funny as well. This guy has no idea how to even talk to a woman, let alone a person who is literally made for him.
And again, no one talks to him. No one ever takes him in. No one ever is kind to him. He has no mentor. His only mentor is Jake Gyllenhaal, right? When he goes to the movies and he sees this dancer who he knows from a newspaper clipping had polio and has different sized legs, and yet still, through the magic of good shoes, is able to be the screen icon dancer. I think that that is how he sees himself, right? I may have been assembled in this strange, monstrous way, but I can somehow wind up dancing with the girl.
Yeah, he also literally sees himself doing that. When he's at the movies, he sees his face and his body on the screen, and that happens throughout the movie, but that is definitely hit over the head with the mallet of that's how he sees himself.
This movie changes aspect ratios like crazy, because when you see Jake Gyllenhaal or Christian Bale dancing on the black and white screen, that's in the full IMAX ratio. It's much taller, but then it cuts to Frank in the audience and it's narrow ratio, and then it cuts back and it's tall ratio again. But Maggie Gyllenhaal said in an interview something that I really wanted to chew on, is that the relationship between Frank and Ronnie is a mirror to the relationship between Ida and Frank, in that both are in love with a person who doesn't know them. They are both forming an attachment that is one-sided and based out of ignorance and projection.
Yeah, it's a lot of projection. And Frank, early on, Annette Bening was just like, let's imagine I find this hot redhead for you. What if she's a monster? And he's like, I'll love her anyway. He's committed to the idea. If I have a girl, I'll be in love. I'll accept her no matter what it is. He doesn't know her. He doesn't know her backstory. He doesn't need to be in love with her. And that says a lot more about his need to solve loneliness than it does about him connecting with her. The middle of this movie is about them trying to form that actual connection.
It is interesting because, on the one hand, if you get a puppy or you have a baby, you're supposed to love it no matter what, right? If you have a baby and it's colicky and annoying, you love it anyway. So why don't you have that exact same kind of unconditional love for a partner?
But they're partners before they've met. That's the point. It's like, sure, once you've decided this is your partner, then yes, absolutely you make that commitment. But he just wants his bride, and he hasn't thought about who's walking down that aisle, who they really are. And this is about him learning who the woman, or the women, it should be say multiple, are.
I do love the meet cute between Frank and his bride, though, because the bride knows something's off, because Annette Bening locks the door to lock Frank out of the office, and she's like, what's wrong with him? And Annette Bening's like, you mean his face? And the bride is like, what about his face? His face is fine, even though, staples, scars, stitches. But she's like, why did you lock the door? But he breaks in through the window, falls asleep under her lab table. She does this kind of cute thing of blowing in his face to wake him up. He punches the shit out of her. It is a funny meet cute.
Yeah, it's a violent romance from the get-go. And yes, she takes it. Right now, she doesn't know herself. She wakes up and all she knows, she wants to go home. They try to convince her at breakfast that she should do all these things. And she has a catchphrase, right? She keeps saying, I would prefer not to. Whatever you're suggesting, I ain't doing it.
She's going to say, in a moment that reminds me of that Sting bride, Annette Bening and Annette Bening's maid there are going to be saying, this is from some literature.
Bartleby the Scrivener. I had to read it in high school, and it was like a slap in the face to have this brought up. And they're arguing, was it Nathaniel Hawthorne that wrote it or Melville? And I'm like, holy shit. Do they really think that a mainstream audience wants to hear this?
I never read Bartleby the Scrivener, A Story of Wall Street, but she eruditely tells them this is Melville. I didn't know Melville wrote anything other than Moby Dick. That took so long to write. How did he have any other time in a life?
It's short. You could read Scrivener. It's under 100 pages. Yeah, Moby Dick is the novel. This is the novella. That's why they assigned this to our high school class. They knew we would never finish Moby Dick.
We had Billy Budd. That's what we read, because it's shorter.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there's that one, too.
It's interesting, too, because I did read a summary of it. I actually love this because by saying I prefer not to versus no, Bartleby stymies his ineffective boss because the boss is like, will you proofread this article? I would prefer not to. And so the boss doesn't know how to handle that. The boss actually moves offices to leave this guy behind because the guy won't even be fired. You get out of the office. I would prefer not to. And so it's this passive resistance. This is awesome. I love this.
You're going to try this, aren't you, right?
Yes, I am.
Come Monday morning, you're going to break this one out at the water cooler.
I'm going to do it too. Let's review alligator movies. I would prefer not to.
Yeah, we should start now. But I remember feeling Bartleby was really annoying when I read it. But again, who you are in high school and what you want to spend time reading, it's different than now. I wish I had an adult perspective on this character. But I think what you're citing as important is true. It's passive. It's one way to resist. You can just use your voice, right? Your tongue. And you can speak out and say no. And you have that power. Do you have to get violent? This is where Act 2 spends a lot of its time, right? With this Jessie Buckley character wondering which path to take, violence or just passive protest. She's breaking things. I should say it's not entirely passive. She's throwing jelly jars off the breakfast table and breaking her coffee cup, but she's not attacking Annette Bening. And so in that way, it's different than how she'll be later. What she really wants to understand, it bothers her a lot. She wants to go home, and she doesn't know where that is. And I think that defines this character, right? Who am I? Who's my real voice? And how can I get to a place that feels comfortable? This lab ain't it. So she's more than happy to go out that window that Frank showed her, and they go on their date. They go to the movies, and then they go to this gay bar where she's obviously very comfortable being gender fluid on the floor.
If it's a gay bar, why are there guys groping her and wanting to rape her? Aren't gay people at gay bars?
Well, everyone's at a gay bar, but I will say, yes, this is an interesting point that probably is not well understood. Many gay bars at this time were owned by mobsters. Gays needed protection, and mobsters provided that so they could exploit them. And so most gay bars before Stonewall, you were going to deal with people like Vito, and those are Vito's goons. They're straight men there to rough up the drag queens and everyone else there.
This is all helping to make it click. This movie's very anachronistic in the music and its references, and they're playing very modern music here. It feels like a modern club.
Yeah, Karen Dreyer, I've seen her in concert. She was in a band called The Knife. I don't know if you've ever heard of this Swedish goth synth band from the early 2000s. Really fun. They've got a green suit and curled hair. This is really tamed down from how they usually present. Knife shows, if you can ever get to one, they ever come back. Amazing art school, art performance kind of stuff. But it's setting the idea that in the bride's mind, she's at a hip new wave club being gender fluid, and when Frank's watching her, he's casting her in his musical, right? We see the disparity in the way that they look at each other in this musical moment. Does this make it a musical that we have these sequences?
No, musicals every 5 or 7 minutes or so have a song. These have dance numbers, and these guys aren't singing. They're just dancing. So it's not a musical.
I think the music's important. I wouldn't call it a musical either, but these sequences can't come out of the movie. They need to be there.
I wouldn't call it a musical, much like how I think Maggie Gyllenhaal is trying to say you cannot define a female by a single characteristic. I believe this movie is equally undefinable. It is drama, it is action, it is musical, it is comedy, it is its own thing.
It's partly by design that it feels this chaotic, because you're right. I think that's how Gyllenhaal would like us to see women, as complex.
But you telling me that these are straight guy mobsters at a gay bar helps explain to me why the hell they'd pick a fight with this guy Frank, who is so much taller than them, and clearly, I feel, using pacifism because he knows he is coming from a place of strength that he's choosing not to, but they think he's I'm going to use a 30s term here, pansy. I think they might even use that word. That might be why it's in my mind. They knock his hat off and kick him in the face. They think he's an easy mark. And so they think they can just beat up on the gay guy and rape the lesbian woman and get away with it, not expecting to get fucking curb stomped. And even better than the curb stomp is when he's smashing the mobster's head into the brick wall, and the sound effects, the squishing. When this movie goes violent, it goes violent.
It would be quite a thing if we had more of this. I hear you saying that there was a cut at one point before people with comment cards made them take it out.
Well, what they made take out was violence against women.
Yeah, again, I have so much curiosity about the original vision. How much about what I'm not connecting to is the response of it being re-edited, as opposed to just not artistically finessed? Anyway, they are now lovers on the run. Frank does his best to try and tell her, I want you to go away from me. I don't want to put you in danger. It helps us like Frank, right? That he's not being so possessive of her that he's making her go on the run with him. But she is excited and has nowhere else to go, right?
I absolutely love this. There's going to be a mob. I've been through this before. I mean, that's what Frankenstein's known for, is the mob comes for him.
Here come the pitchforks and torches, yeah.
I mean, I think that's what he's envisioning, is people with torches coming at him in the night after killing these gangsters.
And I think romantic love does feel like this. It's not always rational of like, this is who I want to marry, but you know you're in love when it feels this exciting, right? We're on the run, us against the world. It just allows her to have this emotional attachment to a man who is going to lie to her for much of the rest of this movie, who is going to give her his own name and put thoughts in her head that she's going to try to say she remembers, but never happen.
He is such a bad liar. Like, what's my name? Ginger Rogers. And she knows, she can't remember herself, but she remembers things. She knows Ginger Rogers is a dancer. She knows this isn't true. He is such a bad liar. How much of this does she really think he's telling her the truth of? Or how much is she deceiving herself or wanting to believe it?
I think we're having that argument with Mary Shelley, right? Whenever she's dreaming, we've had 2 dream sequences where Mary Shelley comes to her and it's like, knock, knock, it's Mary. Thought you were going to marry Frankenstein. She's testing her creation. She's testing the sequel to exactly that. Why can't you remember your name? Who are you? She wants her to have this brain attack. This is the first time we get this phrase that will become the catchphrase. Have a brain attack. We're all being smothered. There's even a moment where she's dreaming she's a head in a jar, right? And I'm smothering in this jar. I'm having brain fog. How do I get free? Mary is conceiving her sequel as this bride freeing herself of this patriarchy and this tyranny.
They have this interlude with her in the jar, and it's she talking to Ida, that whole thing. Do you prefer this over like the Tourette's sort of like back and forth that Jessie has to do with being the bride and being Mary Shelley, like all these outbursts? And I was wondering why they go to the interludes instead of just doing the Tourette's the whole time. Is it she's trying to make a bigger point? Because you could actually do this with the Tourette's sort of outbursts instead of having this visually interesting and fun interlude, as we call it, with her in the jar.
I liked Lost Daughter. I think Maggie Gyllenhaal is a good director. I think she is still someone who is more comfortable on the stage than she is visualizing things cinematically. It's much more exciting to have a head in a jar than a woman talking to herself, right? A lot of what I'm watching, particularly early on with Mary Shelley, feels like a one-woman show theater performance, right? It could be on stage. We don't even need this to be a movie because it's all about her doing the voices and affecting the different roles that women play. I think Sarah Snook just did this on Broadway with The Portrait of Dorian Gray, where she played all 36 roles and took all of that on. You could conceive this work in that way, I do think. As a movie, I want to see the visuals. I want to see the head in the jar.
And I want to give compliments where they're due. The writing of this, the Tourette stuff you talked about, Brock, and I had the exact same word in my notes, Tourette's. It's like instead of screaming curse words, you're screaming rhymes and free associations, and she's like a walking thesaurus. And I love it when Frank goes, "You have a great vocabulary."
He's very intimidated by her word. Yeah, he's not smarter than her, for sure.
But to write the words that rhyme and mean and all of that is a talent. And then the actress delivering those words, memorizing those lines, rapid fire delivery with complete conviction, whereas I feel Christian Bale is going big and it's just not working. Jessie Buckley is going big and nailing it every time. Every scene, she's blowing me away.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, Arnie. This performance is so incredible, and so I made sure I watched Hamnet before we had this conversation to see what she's going to win the Oscar for. This actress is someone to pay attention to, and I completely agree. Presumably going to win the Oscar for Hamnet because she's won everything else. This is amazing, and what you're saying is 100% true. She is going big, but it completely works in the context of what's going on. It's remarkable.
Yeah, I think we're watching a new Meryl Streep happen. I've seen enough of her work to feel like she can do different accents and different performances and be incredible in all of them. I have not seen her stumble at all. And even in a movie like this that will not be remembered this time next year, you believe that she's award worthy. Anyway, she is waking from this dream and committing her first act of murder. She didn't really hurt the guys at the club, but now that they're on a boxcar train and the police are searching for them, Frank protects her. He keeps her hidden, but for some reason she can't stop doing a Marlene Dietrich song. And again, musical number gets them caught and she has to push the cop out to his death.
I do love, again, the lying to herself, allowing Frank to lie to her and her to believe it. Do you think that guy's okay? Oh, I'm sure he's fine.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Deluding yourself. Absolutely. If she were to be more honest. But that would mean giving up on this love, which is fun and addictive, right? And now they're in New York. The train has dropped them off at Washington Square, and he's going to get into the fountain and collect the pennies. And that scrounges up enough money for them to, I don't know, rent an empty swimming pool? I don't know where they're at.
I thought they broke into like an abandoned YMCA.
The YWCA. That's what it is.
Okay, because they're in an empty pool. I'm like, this is the second movie this year I've seen with an empty swimming pool sequence, the first being 28 years later, Bone Temple. What is it with empty pools in 2026? Maybe the price of water is just so high we can't fill them anymore. But it was a very strange hideout that they're there. And then an interesting scene between them. She's like, you want to fuck? It might help us go to sleep better. And then she goes to give him head. And she undoes his pants, and we get a close-up, and I think the man has no dick. Because what we see is a seam, and she just kind of stops and looks, and, I mean, it's been questioned, right? Did Dr. Frankenstein give him a schlong? I mean, why would you necessarily need to when creating a monster? If you do, I mean, when you're assembling body parts, did you care about girth in that part? I mean, how much thought was Dr. Frankenstein putting into it? I thought he was a eunuch. I thought when he was lonely, he was incapable of this just because they stop and it looks like he's a Ken with a stitch. But then there's something there because she starts sucking it.
I also saw what Arnie saw. I thought he didn't have a penis, but then again, why would the doctor need to put one in? Well, just for basic bodily function, you would need one, right? You would have to just expel urine and things, right?
Does Frankenstein have a circulatory system? He's stealing shrimp. Does he have to eat? If he eats, does he defecate? I mean, these kinds of questions I've never pondered until this movie.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen the Warren Beatty, Faye Dunaway, Bonnie and Clyde? We've not covered it, and I haven't seen it in decades. But my memory is that Warren Beatty does have erectile dysfunction, and that part of their violence is a representation of the fact that he can't get it up. He can shoot it up, but he can't get it up for her. I think they're making reference to that.
Yeah, I've rewatched it recently because it's been years since I've seen it, and thankfully I did before watching this movie. What a great coincidence. And that absolutely is something that they get their sexual kicks out of robbing banks and killing people instead, because they can lie together, but they can't necessarily have sex.
I would assume he's equipped, because we'll see later that he is able to perform and satisfy, but it is still too raw, right? This is his first time, and she's being kind of aggressive, and it's just too much for him. He recoils. He would rather go to the movies. He notices at this point, hey, my newspaper clipping is gone, and it's probably time for us to shift gears and focus on the other couple that's kind of happening in tandem. As these two lovers on the run have made it to New York, we see their male and female counterparts as detectives.
Peter Sarsgaard, Maggie Gyllenhaal's husband as Detective Jake Wiles, and Penelope Cruz. I have not seen Penelope Cruz in a long time, did not recognize her. Wasn't until the end credits rolled that I'm like, oh, that was Penelope Cruz? As I couldn't get a read on 2 watchings of exactly what her job is. He calls her his secretary, but he says that to other men who are ignoring her and won't answer her questions and look at him like, what's a dame doing here? You know?
Yeah, that sheriff in Indiana, when they're investigating the train, he doesn't even want to give her a cigarette. He's very comfortable talking to a man, incredibly uncomfortable talking about a case with a woman.
The character to me was definitely his girl Friday.
Just to help people out, because obviously the term is not in vogue today, his girl Friday is like a secretary. There is even a movie. It was Rosalind Russell with Cary Grant back then, and Katharine Hepburn has played that kind of character as well. You see it in screwball comedies where the woman is always there to help the man along that's kind of fumbling and not as sharp.
Took me 2 scenes to realize this is indeed Penelope Cruz, because it has been a hot minute since I've seen her as well. I don't know why it has to be Penelope Cruz. However, I do know that I thought of Inspector Gadget, and I thought of a few versions of Sherlock Holmes when Watson was the brains behind the operation, that he could not be as effective as he possibly could be without she being there. She is the brains behind the operation. That is very clear. And what really threw me for this one is when I see Peter Sarsgaard and things, he's usually the bad guy. He's usually the guy who goes against you. I think Garden State, though, he wasn't that guy, but maybe he was. It depends how you look at it.
He's never a purely heroic type.
And he's not here either, but I just was waiting for him to turn everybody into the mob. That twist never came, but something similar enough did that he took the bribe, right?
The thing with Penelope Cruz, you said, why does it have to be Penelope Cruz? I feel like that almost muddles the issue because not only is she female, of course, but she's also a Spaniard. And anti-Hispanic sentiment is so strong in this country today, let alone in the 30s. There are so many reasons for racists and sexists to write her off that if you're making a feminine treatise, to start bringing up international reasons and race relations in it is muddying the water.
It might be muddying the water, but it's also her point, right? That there's an underclass. There are people that are seen and noted, white men, and then there are people that go unnoticed. I think Penelope Cruz, yes, obviously, you can see her in that role. I also think it's important, if we think of this in terms of noir and crime movies, that women typically are seen as femme fatales. They manipulate the men. They're evil. They're dangerous. There's a lot of misogyny that comes with that genre. So to have a character who is actually going to twist that, and we'll learn through the story of this Jake and this Myrna, that what might have looked like a femme fatale is actually a victim of his, and his police work is part of the revisionist take on the genre. She's the one that finds the newspaper clipping by the train track. She's the one that's already bought the train tickets to New York. They're the ones staking out Times Square when the monster and his bride decide to go out for a movie since the sex didn't work out. Bride is smart enough to know we've already seen Dubious Detective a million times. Maybe they're looking for you there. Let's go see White Zombie in 3D, which you could not do in 1936.
I had to look this up because it confused me because they're wearing the red and blue glasses. And I'm like, well, movies are black and white, so why would you have the red and blue tint on a black and white film? And it turned out this Analgriff 3D was tested in New York City for test audiences with the red and blue glasses in the 1930s.
Wait a minute. White Zombie is a black and white movie, though.
Right. I don't think it was tested on White Zombie, but they had this Analgraph red and blue glasses 3D film in prototypes in the 30s in New York City.
Of course they did. We all know that. I mean, how deep do you have to go to find this stuff out? That's crazy that they're trying to be historically accurate. I don't think that she cares.
No, I don't think she cares either, but I had a couple of problems. This movie's not really 30s, but as soon as they go into a movie with a bunch of 3D glasses, I'm thinking 50s. So instantly, I'm like, there were no 3D movies in the 30s. Well, if I came on this show and said there were no 3D movies in the 30s, somebody's going to go to the Wikipedia article I went to and cite it.
It's an outlier, though. There were no 3D movies at this time.
But people watching this movie either will contest it, even though it's accurate historically. They're not going to know that. It's a really obscure fact. So the fact that they actually are going to one at this time just seems out of the blue and crazy.
Meta for what reason? What does this being a 3D movie add to the scene? It could have been a 2D movie and still have the guy raping his girlfriend in the audience.
No, I think you're right to think of the 50s and to think about the way teenage boys took teenage girls to 3D horror movies so that they could get in their pants, right? We will see that play out in front of the monsters. They take their seat and there's this guy named Eddie that's backing on a girl. She kind of likes it, but then she's like, slow down, no. And the bride has to intervene. I think it's just a commentary on a different era of movies. I mentioned the fact that this film feels like it should come with footnotes. I feel it's academic in the way it's deconstructing movie making. We've jumped ahead in time.
It is such a weird scene. Again, Jessie Buckley is great in this film, but her delivery there, you could say yes if you want to. I remember it being kind of fun and then turning to the guy, but it's better with a wet pussy. It's just like, what is going on here? Is there any man except Frankenstein who's not trying to rape a woman in this film?
I think the point is, and this may be uncomfortable for us as men, but to frame it in terms of men can be overly aggressive. And yes, it's not about making us comfortable by saying not all men. I don't believe Maggie Gyllenhaal believes it's all men, but the message of this movie is this is male behavior that needs to be checked, and that can rub people raw. I mean, I think that's probably why the movie was reduced. Part of it might have been violence, and part of it might have been that kind of messaging, that kind of feminism that we haven't seen really since the 70s or 80s, the Dworkin kind of feminism of all men are rapists. Yeah. Has it gone too far? Are you overcorrecting by pointing out the problems of the genre, the sins of detective movies, the sins of horror movies? I think this movie is definitely guilty of being too blatant, too one note at times.
That's where I would agree. This movie lacks nuance in a very nuanced topic.
Sometimes, but you're missing some of the nuance if you say it's always a message mallet. There's also attention to specifics. So it's a creature that lives in between being overly obvious and understated.
But that's a problem with the tone of this movie. This movie feels tonally all over the place. She can't have both ways all of the time. You have to have a little bit of subtlety, you have to have a little bit of overt. I would prefer more subtlety. There are certain things in here that are very clever, and there are other things that I despise actively. And we haven't got there yet. But I just really think that scenes like this one is kind of like, didn't we already talk about this? Do we need to have this again? But at the same time, it's kind of great to see the bride physically assault somebody and not feel like, oh my God, what did I just do? Like, she actually asserted herself there because she believed in it. Something inside her did that. And she's trying to figure out who she is and where she came from. She knows this is right.
But does she go too far in the next scene? Everyone runs out of this theater. The cops now know that the monsters are on the loose, and they have to duck into this Criterion hotel where they bumblingly try to pretend they're caterers as if no one would notice. But maybe that's a commentary on the rich, right? The rich don't even look at who's carrying the trays, even if it's Frankenstein. But this is where we have Frank meet his idol. We have Jake Gyllenhaal as the silver screen Fred Astaire, meeting him in person, and Frank gushing how he changed his life.
This is a great performance. I really like Jake Gyllenhaal in this minor role here. I think the dancing, the singing, just this scene here, I think he's good in. I do like the story that Maggie Gyllenhaal has told a few times of she didn't want to work with her brother because she had some professional jealousy of him, and they haven't worked together since Donnie Darko, which we will be covering later this year. She wanted to prove she was her own actress, her own film creator, and she and Jake were not ever very close, and she asked him to do this, and they've become much closer out of this. I like Jake Gyllenhaal in a lot of different movies. His remake of Roadhouse was really good, just to call one out that's recent and underseen. And I think he does this very well. And he has the look that he could just be this guy.
Yes, he is that look.
That's really what it is, right? He could have been a star 100 years ago.
I like this scene with Frankenstein talking to his idol, and I liked how Jake Gyllenhaal was with it, and then, of course, Frank made it weird. I like that they showed us the boot that Frankenstein was talking about and how he related to him. But the one thing that I actively disliked was the Young Frankenstein reference. They're dancing to Putting on the Ritz. Now, if you're going to have Frankenstein and Top Hat and Tails earlier in the movie dancing, obviously people like us who know that movie would be thinking that. To flat out overtly call it out is undercutting a lot of what she's trying to do in this movie. And I thought, like, off limits, Frankenstein singing Putting on the Ritz, because that makes you instantly think of Peter Boyle and Gene Wilder. And I have this big issue when people reference other movies that are better than the movie we're watching. It makes me want to watch those movies instead of watching your movie. And this movie references a lot of other movies, but it doesn't like overtly reference it.
Here's what I'd argue. She knows that you know, and she wants you to think about all the different kinds of cinematic Frankensteins there have been. She's trying to encapsulate that. I think it's too ambitious, frankly. I think it's where the movie stretches too far. But I think, again, there's a lot of meta going on. There's a lot of commenting about movie making and movie Frankensteins and bringing up Mel Brooks's movie Frankenstein. It is a very important Frankenstein movie. It's a very popular one. We haven't covered it.
Maybe we should, but my point is that that's the wrong one to reference, Stuart. It just takes me completely out of this movie. That scene is iconic for those who know it.
It's all I could think of too, Brock, and it's the wrong thing to reference in a serious treatise about gender relations to bring up a movie that is, what, knockers?
Yes.
But this movie's not serious. I think that's the wrong thing to take. I'm not trying to just be someone on a soapbox saying feminism, feminism, feminism. I want to be fun. Part of being a woman is being frivolous and fun and dancing. It's a great dance sequence.
Anyone who says I want to be fun isn't fun.
Stuart, you're right. It's beautifully choreographed. It's beautifully danced. Christian Bale, of course, we all know can dance. And it's really great to see them together dancing side by side. All of that's wonderful.
Yeah, I love the sequence.
Bad choice of song.
Okay.
And what the fuck is really going on? One guy passes out, and I'm thinking this is a fantasy in Frank's head. We've seen him project himself on screen. I'm thinking this whole dance number is a fantasy in his head. Now I think it's some kind of Beetlejuice thing
Yes.
where spirits have possessed all the other people to dance along with them.
In perfect choreography.
Yeah, perfect dance moves. But when the cops burst in and the bride stops dancing and everybody else is still dancing, that gives us a third-person perspective that this is not a fantasy sequence, making it really just out of place for this movie. It's wonderfully choreographed. It's wonderfully danced. I love Christian Bale's horrible rendition, Peter Boyle-esque, another hit. But what is it doing in this movie?
I like the sequence too. I think what bothers me about it is we never see them do this again. It tells us they have the power to suck people into their vortex. And later we're going to get a brief montage of learning that there's copycats, that there are people that are so influenced by them that they're going to go and put the ink smudge on their face and go out and commit crimes as well. So this is the beginning of that, saying what we're doing is going to inspire a revolution. And this is the first revolutionary act with a gun, and it means killing a good man, a literal good man. Officer Goodman comes forward, and it takes this happy moment and turns it sad, because this is the moment where I believe Jessie Buckley, bride, whatever we want to call her in this moment, I think she's going by Penny or Penelope at this moment, but she kills for the first time.
Second time, really. I mean, she killed the guy on the train.
Well, you're right, because this isn't entirely with intention, but it feels closer to intention, right? The first one, clearly an accident. This one, she's shocked, right? Part of it is she sees Peter Sarsgaard and recognizes him, but doesn't know from where. This is someone from my past, and I don't know who he is, but he means something to me. And of course, he knows her and has been babbling about how none of this will be her fault. He's got a guilty conscience. But out of all of this, the important thing is a shot has been fired and a revolution has been launched. And while these two are going to split town, other people, maybe the people in this room that were dancing, are now taking it to the streets. It's not articulated enough to be as clean and clear as I would want it.
I agree with you there. And also, I feel like this movie, the time it's placed in, 1936, makes some of what happens next less likely, just because, like, when he's beating people up outside the bar, there just happens to be somebody there with a camera, with a flash, like reporters are just hanging out outside, or just a random person with a camera is just there to take their photo. And now the bride gives her big speech, half Mary Shelley with the English accent, half bride with the American accent. But finally, she's yelling brain attack. In today's world, every single person at that party would be filming her. She would go viral. And then people would know, oh, she stole somebody's, I don't know what that is, some lace thing off their garment and put it on like a black veil. And she has the smudge and she screams brain attack. And so because it would go viral, people would see it. Well, there's nobody there with film cameras and microphones. So there's like one photograph is some newsie, Christian Bale, going around and writing, she said brain attack, and people are mimicking that. It's a really bad period piece in that nothing that happens in it and none of the dialogue feels period appropriate. Because this is a fantasy movie, I'm giving it more leeway, but it's stretching it too far.
The anachronism is part of the point. That's what I deeply believe. It's baked into the cake that you're supposed to have these moments of going, huh? I mean, mine that I keep running into is 1936. These people are acting like flappers. These people are acting like it's the 20s. 1936, we're worried about Hitler and the Great Depression. None of what they're doing is 1936 at all. And more to the point, feminism wasn't born in 1936. It had had a healthy revolution for decades before this, and greater strides than this, than what the bride is going to be able to accomplish. So it's just really weird to me that they've settled on this date, because clearly they are moving very freely between 40s noir, 50s 3D movies, 20s dancing, you name it.
It feels messy as a result of this, though.
Intentionally, right? That's the style. That's messy like a Pollock.
Maybe it's intentional, but sometimes being intentional doesn't mean good. She may be meaning to do this.
I didn't say you had to like it. I have to say you have to think of it as art and not a commercial project that's out of control. These are choices that were made. She did this on purpose. That splatter, that paint splatter, is there for her reason. And what that is, you can interpret for yourself.
This can be both an art project and a commercial project out of control, because nobody gives 80, 90, $100 million just for art's sake.
Well, this is why Warner Brothers is mad. This is why Warner Brothers is dumping this in March. But this is always what's so interesting to me when a little movie gets overfunded. Like how this got to be such a big IMAX production is kind of ridiculous, because obviously it's the kind of movie I would see with 10 other people in the 90s at an art house, right? It's just not a big Frankenstein horror movie. It's not The Mummy, but they're acting like it should be. Anyway, they've escaped New York and they're on the road. They've stolen a car and they're driving around, and Penny's got some guilt about it, but Frank keeps telling her, feel good. This is incredible. This makes you my bride. I'm happy that you're being a killer with me.
Yeah, now that she is a monster, like he has seen himself as a monster, they can consummate their relationship. That act of violence was their marriage. She put on a veil and he stole some shrimp that they're eating days later. I'm really worried. If Frankensteins can get food poisoning, they surely did. She does puke a lot. So maybe it's the food poisoning off the shrimp. Pocket shrimp is just not a tempting food. And this is where she starts asking even more questions, like, how did you propose to me? Was I the same before the accident? Things like that. And he doesn't even put effort into his lies.
Yeah, but she doesn't really want to challenge it either, because it's fun. Because again, they're both smiling. They do like each other, but it's based on a lie. It's based on projections. Again, there are moments where she's like, well, that's great. You gave me a ring, but where's the ring? Well, we pawned it to get you oysters. We know she doesn't like oysters. She has a visceral reaction to oysters. She'll vomit if she eats oysters. She can feel that. She can feel her old self, that Ida from the first scene still in her, but she wants to believe she's in love. Like many people that are in love, they just want to go with the feeling and not be logical.
I think the oyster thing is the first time she realizes, okay, this guy's full of it.
But again, still smiling until the cop that likes dirty limericks pulls her over. And then they're really baptized in blood, right? Then they've really killed. Before it feels like happenstance, but these are very aggressive acts killing law enforcement.
And if you could believe it, this role of the rapist cop, John Mulaney tried out for this role. I cannot imagine John Mulaney as a dirty limerick reciting rapist.
I've seen this guy before. Obviously, Gyllenhaal has worked with all of these people. She's vetted them.
I thought he had a real Casey Affleck look to his face and shape and smile and everything. But no, this guy has just been in stuff I've seen. Killers of the Flower Moon, 21 Bridges. He was the man in the black suit in Amazing Spider-Man 2, but no, I don't know him.
The point is, we know who he is, right? When the cops pull them over, we know exactly how this is going to go down. Spread eagle on the hood. Frank has to pretend that he's a sick uncle, and at some point has to pull out the gun, and these officers are killed.
Frankenstein took a long time to react to killing those cops when she was getting assaulted for quite some time before he actually stepped up. There's a shot of him looking at the other cop in the car, wondering what that guy's going to do, why his woman's getting groped, and it was just really strange.
That other cop, it's pre-cell phone. I do not know what he's doing. He looks like he's surfing his phone. He's not paying any attention to the sexual assault. I mean, if there's a sexual assault occurring,
you look the other way. That is Gyllenhaal's point, that men will just permit it. Just as Sarsgaard later will be participatory and the silencing of women, this is a guy that's probably just wishing he wasn't here right now and having to see this.
Well, this cop gets shot in the head and nobody cares. And then that cop from the car does shoot Frank in the gut. And it seems to hurt him, but I can never tell what really hurts a Frankenstein. We're going to see later on, blowing your brains out hurts a Frankenstein. Is this some kind of bad wound? Is this something he can shrug off? I'm not really sure.
I thought Frankensteins were bulletproof based off this scene because he doesn't get in any sort of pain until later when he gets shot in the head. Like, he's dealing with this and not seeming to slow down at all.
Early on with Annette Bening, he says that he's used to pain. And so she asked him, does this hurt? And he's like, I don't know, right? So he's just a creature that's very existence is defined by pain. The pains of loneliness, the physical pains of having all these body parts stitched together. I think it's his default. I am in pain. But something important has happened here. We saw her bite out that tongue, and I think that that is a primary motif in this movie, right? Who has the right to speak? Do you have the ability to speak? She is committing the act as savage and as violent as what has been done to her and to other women. And we cut back to Lupino, and this mobster has a whole collection, right? He has jars and jars of women's tongues, and he's sending his two guys out to get hers. He knows who she is. I think this is such an interesting moment. He's like, that's Ida Walensky, and we need to get her. He knows very well who this woman in the photographs that is making the papers everywhere really is. And when one of them claims they've already killed her, and there's no point in going after her, he shoots him and sends, well, what I call the Peter Lorre character, the Clyde, to do the job.
Yeah, this was an interesting scene because you could just tell from his whole persona, Lupino is a dangerous guy, and this actor, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, Zlatko something, is just playing it to the hilt as a mobster and saying, you've got to go kill this woman. And the fat mobster's like, we already did, ha 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 ha. And he's going to get shot in the head. I mean, there's clearly a newspaper in front of him showing this woman is alive. So his flippancy is going to get him shot.
Do you get a little bit of Weinstein off this mobster kingpin? I feel it might be intentional. I know Gyllenhaal had her dealings. I don't know her story or whether she was a part of his assaults, but I got that this gangster felt very much like the kingpin was Harvey.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. It's possible.
Anyway, we're heading towards a climax in which we have this mobster. Not only are the detectives chasing after this couple, but this mobster is too. And because he's an ineffectual male, he can only follow the lead of Penelope Cruz to Niagara Falls. She has figured it out. This couple is visiting all the places that Jake Gyllenhaal made movies, and Niagara Falls is where Honeymoon Hotel happened. That bride feeling terrible. She says, I'm revolting, which has a double meaning, right? So she's both an activist and she's a monster for her activism. Her violence makes her both heroic and disgusting, and Mary's kind of cheering her on. And this is where Jake comes to her, and he confesses, I feel bad for putting you this way. What puts the couple at odds is that Frank didn't know there was a man before, and this guy knows Ida. He never knew Ida.
Frank gets all jealous. Oh, were you with this guy? I mean, you dug up a body. She's gotta have a history.
Yeah, but he didn't think about it. Again, he was in love with her for just being an object. That's an important statement, right? Knowing the person that you're with, knowing your wife as opposed to just seeing her as a trophy.
I gotta think any woman who goes down on you in an abandoned WYCA has a sexual history.
That's a good point.
Yes. But again, he's not very smart, right? It's kind of like her delusions. I don't want to think about you having a past. You're mine. He says that throughout Act 2. You're mine. You're my bride. And now he doesn't feel like his bride is his own. And yes, I think that's what really comes between him, is the thought that you've been with this other guy. And we do have a scene where Penelope Cruz bringing this detective that can't walk anymore because he's been shot in the foot, a sandwich, and hearing his confession about what he really did to Ida.
And that's also a little underdeveloped. I think he gets paid to drop the case because he says he's on the mob payroll, but if he was on the payroll from the beginning, he never would have brought the case in the first place.
The police commissioner is in on it. We never meet the police commissioner, but it's said in several scenes, and maybe he's in cuts of the movie that aren't here, but the police were more or less complicit with the mob. They let them do what they wanted to. And this guy was working the case, and when the police commissioner told him, stop working the case, Ida came to him and said, let's keep working, and he just used that as an excuse to sleep with her. He used her and then didn't reopen the case.
And so he's going to resign from the force and give Penelope Cruz his badge and let her be a detective. He says, I'm resigning under the condition that I get to choose my own replacement. I don't think things work that way, but...
No, definitely not. Particularly in a boys' club like this, where men are running the show. But again, it's important to have that perspective. If you think about detective movies, the detectives are always men, and the women usually are the threat. They're the danger. They're the femme fatale. Thinking about Ida not as a femme fatale, but as someone that he manipulated, I don't think she's blowing anyone's mind here in 2026, but it is Gyllenhaal knocking the film noir genre for its misogyny.
But yes, they have their breakup. A lot of it is that he's been lying to her the whole time, and the oysters and all of that. She's going to kick him out of the car, but take pity on him when he has another one of his panic attacks, and knows that the only thing that's going to calm him down is Ronnie on the big screen, so let's go to the drive-in and see another Ronnie Reed film.
And Clyde figures out that the best way to find Ida is to follow Myrna because he knows that Myrna has figured everything out.
Yes, again, you're having in both cases the women leading, but still having these attachments, right? And it's hard to know. If Frank didn't get shot, would this be their goodbye? It starts to look that way. And then he ends up on his knees, kind of proposing to her, apologizing for what he did. We will see at the end of this movie, her try to save his life and say that she'll love him till the end of time. Is that the reshoot? I don't feel like the story being told is me learning to be the wife of Frank.
I didn't know there were reshoots. I knew there were cuts. I didn't hear anything about reshoots. If there were, this would make more sense because I'm watching this and the whole thing has been from Mary Shelley's ghost. She needs to find her name. We'll call her Ida at the start, but she needs to find her name. She, at this point, finds her name. Her name is the Bride. Not the Bride of Frankenstein, but the Bride. And then he proposes to her, and she smiles and says, I would prefer not to. She's like, can't you feel me, Frank? Then they both start laughing. So, like, was her I prefer not to in jest? I don't know how to read that scene and her actions and words after that scene because this feels like I'm not the bride of Frankenstein. I would prefer not to. That's a breakup.
Here's what I think happened, incorporating some of what you've told me as well. I think there was probably more of her journey on her own, and I think that her attempt to tell her story in Me Too leads to some incredibly terrible violence that makes her regret that choice. I don't know that you could ever write it that she comes back to Frank and that it would make sense for me, because Frank is an abuser, just as Peter Sarsgaard was an abuser, just as the mobster was an abuser. Different kinds, it looks different ways, different levels, but manipulation, cruelty, gaslighting, at no point do I feel like this relationship is healthy, and her returning to it feels like studio interference. It feels like Warner Brothers saying, we have to have sequels, you have to do this.
Yeah, I didn't see sequel in it, but this turn came out of nowhere. This whole area, when Penelope Cruz goes to the police station and all the male cops ignore her, and so she has to go ask the secretary where the movie theater is, there's that mallet in my face again. And then this scene where she says, I'd prefer not to, but then declares he's the love of her life, and she gets all upset when he gets shot in the head. You've lost the thread. If it's reshoots, if it's re-editing, the final product is a mess.
Yeah, it's been messy, but now it feels confused. There is a difference between that I want to underline. It's okay to be in a chaotic movie like Natural Born Killers, where you're meant to be disoriented, but you'd never want to feel like Oliver Stone doesn't know what he's saying. And at this moment, I'm not sure I understand what Maggie Gyllenhaal is now saying by saying the climax of this movie is making Frank come back into her life so that she can be with him forever. The bride, exclamation point, right? I am not the bride of Frankenstein. I'm no man's bride. I take on no other name. Just as she is just Mary now and not using her father's name or her husband's name. This is the bride, exclamation point. It reminds me of like when Janet Jackson had that album, Janet Period. And she's like, I'm not Jackson anymore. Don't think of my other identities. Think of me in this way now. And that's what the bride is. She has become what a bride represents. The way that men see women, in this conception anyway, as things to acquire. She will not become that. It would be stronger if we didn't have this ending. That's all I can say, is I get that you want to come back to Cornelia and you want to have her reveal the story about how she too brought her lover back from the dead. But I think you needed more of the bride on her own realizing how Frank helped her, if we're going to believe that she needs him now.
And I feel like stuff is missing or inferred that I just don't get with Euphroneous, because when we come back to her, her housemaid now has the stain on her lip, which makes me think she died and came back to life. The cat, she talks about how she reanimated cats, and the cat has the stain on its lip.
No. We've not really understood Greta. She's kept wanting to peek in and find out what's going on, but she's joined the hysteria, right? She's one of the women that are now actively applying makeup to have the smudge. She's a fangirl. She likes the bride. She wants to be a bride, and she's all down with it to see her hero come back.
Yeah, that's how I took that as well. I'm also having the same problems you guys are having with the ending. I just don't understand how she got from point A to point B, and then going to point C also is strange to me.
But I also want to underline something else that happens in this moment that feels really important. Bride is like, what about my rage? Me too. This is where she's screaming, me too. And Annette Bening, who again has been getting details about her life on the run and killing people and has been looking horrified, looks at her and says, this is the dead end of revenge. Annette Bening is telling her that how she has behaved and the revolution that she has led has been bad, or at least had consequences that are monstrous. And that this is not trying to be as blunt as all men bad, women good. That there is a way that in activism you can become a monster, is taking a humbling stance to the Me Too movement.
See, and I didn't get that out of it, but I did get violence begets violence. I wish I understood more of Annette Bening reviving her husband and then having to put her husband back down.
Agreed. There had to be more to that. It doesn't say enough.
And the way she used that term, like how you put down a pet, it landed so hard. Like, wow, there's a story there that I want to hear.
Yeah, there's something else here, and it is lost in the editing room. And if this movie is ever released in a media where we can see additional scenes or alternate cuts, I would really enjoy that. I think it would be revelatory.
But as it is, we get Clyde bursting in and shooting the bride, and then cops coming in and riddling her with bullets. And finally, a woman asserts control when Myrna gets all the cops to stop shooting and flashes her badge, and that old white cop has to respect her authority and go arrest Clyde.
You had to have thought Bonnie and Clyde here. I mean, come on, it was so freaking obvious that they're going for the ending of Bonnie and Clyde with the way she gets shot up to pieces.
And the guy's named Clyde.
Yes. And just to help people that, again, haven't seen it, the movie was famously shocking. No one had seen screen violence in which people were machine gunned to death the way that ending worked. Like, to actually watch people do that whole dance, where they're being riddled with bullets, was in 1967 when Bonnie and Clyde came out. Like, blew everyone's mind. And they do that again here. But yes, it's within the power of Annette Bening to try again. All right, this idea of feminism didn't quite work. It was too violent. It was too self-destructive. Do we try again for a third wave? Is there a way that we can take something from what happened here and build a new revolution? Penelope Cruz gives them the opportunity, and we won't know what they create. But I do see Frank and the bride revived enough to hold hands. So it's them in it together again.
Annette Bening never says she can't revive Frank. She says she won't revive Frank, and she's going to study the radioactive materials coming off his decomposing body because he's a singularity. And she also says something really interesting about a perfect geometry, and she and her husband were trying to create the antithesis of that, and that is what the bride is.
The world had an order, right? That was the geometry she spoke of, and we wanted revolution. We wanted some things to change. We wanted a bride to come and shake things up, but we didn't want it to look this way. We didn't want it to be this violent. We didn't want good men, cops, to die for this cause. That's not the right message. And so, again, do you take the risk of trying again after something fails? That's how I would call this experiment with Bride and Frank, a failed experiment. And the answer is yes. We are going to do it again and monster mash while we're doing it.
That was a hell of an ending. I mean, I love me some Monster Mash. And what's funny is they start with the early notes and I'm just like, this sounds like Monster Mash, but no way would they play Monster Mash. Oh, they're going to play Monster Mash. Much like the Young Frankenstein ending, it feels like, is this all a joke? Are we supposed to laugh? Are we supposed to feel good walking out of this theater that Frank and the bride are going to mash?
Gyllenhaal has kind of boxed herself into a corner because she said, I want a revolution without violence. And historically speaking, I can't think of too many of those, right? How does that work? How do we have real change without people dying? But that seems to be what Annette Bening and her maid are after when they're left alone to their own devices to revive these two. And this last scene, what I see is a bunch of women with black tongues and ice cream cones, right? And Jake is there too. We're not going to kill the mobster. We're not going to even cut out his tongue because that would be turning into him. We don't want to incorporate the abuser's tactics. We want to say our piece. That's why the black tongue and being able to lick ice cream cones. I don't know, it's kind of ridiculous. But I don't know what else you do to visualize and show what the next wave of feminism is. We're not going to kill.
I honestly thought they cut out his tongue and they were eating the ice cream to be like, haha, we can lick an ice cream cone and you can't.
No, they cannot be violent or this movie contradicts itself. They have to be more benevolent.
He's tied up. I mean, they're being violent to him.
They're tattooing him with their mark. They're turning his abusing image into themselves and their strength. You can interpret it however you want to. God knows this movie could have multiple interpretations. I see Gyllenhaal saying violence is not the path, and there's a way forward in which women can just speak their truth. Show your black tongue and say what's on your mind, and the world is a better place.
I think you might be right, Stuart, but unfortunately, I also got that they're going to kill him or they already cut out his tongue and they're taunting him by licking ice cream. I don't think that man survives that evening. So what you're saying is good, and I hope that's true, but the messages in this movie being as mixed as they are, I think that this ending might just be what I think it is. It'd be nice if it was what you're saying, but I think it's more about we're going to take revenge on this guy and cutting out his tongue, surrounded by all these jarred tongues, and things you can do with tongues is what the message is.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. He wasn't licking any ice cream cones, so he might not have been able to at that point.
And I knew stuff was cut out, like Frankenstein licking more vomit off the bride and things, and some female violence. But seeing this scene, this does not feel like the movie that should end with Monster Mash or should have a credit scene at all. And it feels to me like Test Card said, what about Lupino? And so this is that answer.
I actually believe, again, if I'm right, and I have no evidence of this, I believe that after Frank got shot, that bride went and found Vito and killed him and felt bad for doing it. That's what I actually believe. And she did it in an incredibly violent way that test audiences didn't like. And so this is the happy ending compromise. Yes, the audiences wanted to end with a song, and that doesn't necessarily feel right, even for this quasi-musical.
This scene just felt so out of place to me. You know what else felt out of place is every time they showed the bride cosplayers, none of them looked period appropriate. Just their makeup, their fashion, their posing, they all felt like Instagram wannabes. None of them felt like revolutionaries. And what were they even doing? I see them jumping on cars and shooting guns in the air, but I don't understand what they're doing other than expressing rage.
Yes, it's a social media montage. It's what I see when I go and look at Insta or whatever. Like people performatively showing their outrage and not really doing anything.
So Brock, Stuart, do you recommend The Bride? I'm really curious. Brock.
As we spoke about throughout this podcast, there are some amazing visuals, there are some amazing moments, and absolutely some incredible performances here on display. The acting in this movie, practically top to bottom, is great. I usually like Peter Sarsgaard. I think he was the weaker link of all the known actors in this. I think his message and his character kind of got muddled or not defined very well for what I wanted from this movie. The problem is what I just said. What did I want from this movie? And what did this movie want to give me? The first hour of this movie, I was so on board. I loved this whole performance thing of Jessie Buckley's going in and out of Mary Shelley and being possessed and asking what's going on. I loved how Frankenstein, the interpretation of who he was and what he wanted and what he needed. I loved the whole relationship of Annette Bening with the two of them at the table and trying to figure out, okay, we've put them back to life, now what? All of these questions, and then it started turning into Natural Born Killers and Bonnie and Clyde. Then it started having some meta references on feminism. Then it had a whole bunch of problems with referencing other movies. I have mixed feelings. As the movie went on, past the first hour, I found myself questioning, what choices is she making? What is she trying to say with this? Why on earth would you reference the comedy movie Young Frankenstein in that amazing scene in the middle of your movie that has really nothing to do with that? Because yes, it's Frankenstein, but what that movie was doing and what this movie is doing don't seem to gel. I think the comedy and the black comedy of the Natural Born Killers and Bonnie and Clyde stuff can certainly play, but not the blatant, over-the-top comedy of a Mel Brooks movie. I think Maggie had nothing but wonderful ideas, and that's why I was looking forward to this movie when she was directing it, because I respect what she does and how she does it, and I thought she had a lot of great ideas here, and bravo for taking chances. She just took a lot of chances, and she wanted to see what would stick against the laboratory wall. So, look, I don't agree with all the stuff. I kind of found it muddied, but I really dug it for more than half the movie. And even when I wasn't enjoying the places it was going or not understanding what she was trying to say, I was intrigued throughout because of how well it was filmed, the performances and the like. So I'm going to give it a recommend. I think it's a green hour for me. I came out of that confused a little bit, but overall thought, dang, this is ambitious, and I'm glad I watched this movie. So it's a green arrow for me.
Stuart.
Yeah, Brock, I can appreciate where you're going in your view. I merged the second time with my mom. I saw it first by myself, and then I'm like, okay, Mom, how are you going to handle this? And her comment was, I'm glad I saw it, but I don't know what I just saw. And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of true. It's this Frankenstein creation, right? There are a lot of ideas that have been stitched together. And sometimes I think Gyllenhaal has done it like a Pollock painting, splattered it all on, artistically, intentionally defying norms and expectations. This is not your typical Bride of Frankenstein movie. And I think, wow, that's an artistic dare. And then there's things that just aren't adding up or are contradicting each other. The ending particularly doesn't feel like it agrees with the rest of the work, and it feels second-guessed and overthought and sometimes blundering and maybe even studio interfered. Certainly test audience interfered. People told Maggie, "You're making art and we don't want that," and she had to comply. I think about the David Fincher quote about, "It's really hard when you spend all this time trying to make a cup, and then at the end of the process they say, but we wanted a bowl, we wanted a plate, we wanted something that served more people." I don't think that this movie is a mainstream film. I think that part of the problem is, for some people, they'll never want what Maggie Gyllenhaal was trying to do here. And then I think even for people that are up for her artistic dare, it's a hard thing to do to have this quasi-musical statement that both challenges men and challenges the women's movement for how they've responded using their voice. It is all over the map, and for that, it kind of leaves me right there in the middle. I could have lived with this or without it. I think the reason why I'm going to go Green Arrow is Jessie Buckley, right? In the end, the thing that you can't deny, you could deny and argue all the points of this movie, but the undeniable center of it all is the fantastic work of Jessie Buckley, who again could have just done this on stage with a chair, right? As a one-woman show. And hearing her do those characters, hearing her embody everything from Mary Shelley to a manipulated woman in the 30s to this fierce bride, iconic 21st century punk rocker, is a thing to behold. So for Jessie, for sure, I say a qualified recommend, but God knows everyone will probably be leaving scratching their heads and having some brain fog, if not a brain revolution.
No, you're right, Stuart. I think there's no denying this film's ambition, and Maggie Gyllenhaal's trying to juggle a lot. A post-Me Too feminist parable with a Bonnie and Clyde road movie about doomed lovers, story of a woman reclaiming her identity after being used by man after man, and somehow a big fantasy with IMAX musical numbers and choreographed dance sequences. But I too think this is like Frankenstein himself. It's mismatched parts. You see the seams. Some of it is impressive. Stitched together, it just moves stiff, awkwardly, and never quite becomes a living whole. Now, I'm going to start with the positives. There's several. The acting is excellent almost across the board. Jessie Buckley essentially playing Mary Shelley, Ida, and the bride, bouncing between those identities. She dominates the movie. Her rapid-fire delivery like an auctioneer and somehow keeping every persona distinct. Even when the ghostly Shelley persona feels a little overplayed, that laugh that I hated on my second viewing. There's just no question. She owns this film. She's amazing in this film. If you see this film, she's the reason to see it, and she's the best thing here. Penelope Cruz also surprised me, though. I'd mostly written her off in the past as decorative casting in films like Vanilla Sky, and here I think she brings a quiet intelligence and some resolve as a policewoman constantly dismissed by the men around her. Annette Bening, Peter Sarsgaard, I think they make really good use of smaller roles. And I think Maggie Gyllenhaal deserves credit. I think the camera work is good. The musical numbers are well choreographed, visually striking, worthy of the IMAX framing. And for a lot of the runtime, I was invested in the bride's journey as she pieces together who she was versus who she's been told she is, and eventually who she chooses to become. Gyllenhaal, the director, I like. Gyllenhaal, the writer, doesn't hold these ideas together. I think Bale's Frank is the cleanest example. His obsession with Ronnie Reed isn't fully fleshed out, and even after meeting his hero and having the disappointing experience, he remains a devoted fan, going from movie site to movie site, and Frank never grows or changes. He's just a lumbering constant. Conversely, the bride herself is a paradox. I still don't know if it's intended that the ghost of Mary Shelley found a host doomed for death. Is that supposed to be funny that Ida was going to die and that's what let Shelley in? Why does the Shelley persona fade as the movie goes on? What was that all about? 2 viewings in, I don't know. And then the musical numbers, the ones on screen I get, but that big showstopper comes out of nowhere with the backup dancers. And when it ended, like you said, Stuart, if that had been repeated, if that was a thing that was just happening in this movie, then I could go with it. But being a one-time thing felt so out of place, like so much of this movie feels out of place. And then I think the feminist messaging is muddy. Nearly every man in this movie seeks to exploit, pursue, or harm women. Even the good men, quotes around that, dismiss women outright. It's blunt to the point of parody. Frank assuming the doctor must be male, the cops ignoring Myrna. I mean, I get it. Fire bad, men worse. And the bride's emotional choices at the end undermine the whole thing. After being manipulated and gaslit for the whole film, she still loves Frank. He proposes, I would prefer not to. Then they laugh and she acts like she's lost the love of her life. Is Frank the problem or is he a tragic Romeo? I mean, they do quote Romeo and Juliet earlier. And then the finale just doesn't land with the bride inspiring a wave of rebellious women. Again, just feels like a clone of Joker riots. Only here it's unclear what these women are doing besides screaming and cosplaying. And the final nail in this dug-up coffin is Bale. He's a great actor at times, and I admire the swing he takes here, but that accent is inconsistent. It sounds like he has a mouthful of marbles. He's energetic, but never believable. Which is the story of this whole film. I mean, Gyllenhaal clearly has visual talents as a director, and she assembled a strong cast willing to go big, but the movie is written in a way or edited in a way that it's fascinating parts that never quite fit together. Is it bold? Hell yes. Is it alive? So if the question is, do I recommend this film? I suppose I could, but I would prefer not to.
Here's my curiosity, though. Did you like it better on second viewing? I know I did.
I liked it worse.
All right, because I think it's a movie that gets better the more you spend time with it, the more you try to figure out what it's doing. Obviously, it's an affront. It's an assault. And again, partially by design. I do think Gyllenhaal wants to offend, to confuse, to muddle. But I don't think she wanted to do it in all the ways that she does. And I do think it's a movie that, even when you give it all the grace, it's hard to call this a masterpiece, right? It's a mess. And maybe you'll appreciate what's good about the mess.
Let me just clarify, I guess. When I walked out of it the second time, I really admired the things I liked about it more, but I really felt the disappointment at its failures deeper. This was a movie I could love. I love that original Joker. I could love this film if it didn't just shoot itself in the foot like the male cop, you know? This film is on the precipice of greatness and then falls off the precipice.
Yeah. Anyway, I think it's safe to say there'll be no sequel, right? We'll see Frankenstein and his bride, but never in this way again. The only thing I have on the docket right now is Universal is going to reboot The Mummy for 2028.
Not reboot, sequel. Legasequel.
Okay, Legasequel, yes. Yeah, Brendan Fraser is coming back. Rachel Weisz, maybe?
Yeah, she signed on. But there's also another Mummy movie this year with a young girl.
Yeah, well, that's my point. People are probably going to ask us why we're not doing that Mummy. We're going to wait for the real Mummy, the one you really want. In 2028, we'll cover Mummy. I think probably the next Universal we do, and I'm not sure when we'll get to it, is the other major character is the Invisible Man. So we'll have to work that in before we do the Mummy.
Phantom's in there somewhere, too.
There's only one Universal Phantom. There's like 6 Universal Invisible Men.
And then there's a couple of modern takes on it, too. Isn't Hollow Man also an Invisible Man movie?
No, but we'll probably find a way to cover it.
Yeah.
How could we ignore it?
And Hollow Man 2.
Yeah.
Anyway, what we won't run away from is our fans, the people that show up for us, the patrons that show with money and care and love and all kinds of support, that they're here for us. We want to take this moment to say thank you so much. That includes saying thank you to ZBGB, Grand Canyon, Alejandro Avila, Tom Ward, Sean Burgess, Julian Lewis, Tom Yannick, Vajra Bader, Darker Hue Studios, Jeremy Smith, Kent Lyons.
Yeah, super thanks to all of our platinum and higher level patrons, Andrew Doran, Mark Burns, DJ Hankomer, Andy Crake, Trevor Harrison, Jeff Wade, Fisher JA12, T Ward 1971, Rudax, Chris Cross, T Costa 2176.
And a very big thank you to J. Clark Fisher, SG Harsh, Dimitri from Belgium, Patrick Faver, G. La Torre Yates, Jeremy Mills, Sean O'Keefe, Michael Windsor, Joe Black, Chris Hargrave, Lucio Rodriguez.
Don't forget about Now Playing Fan, Jeff Gannon, Sky Moyer, The Fuzzy 0101, Kyle Dillard, Mark Masiki, Mohabir Kimra, Robert Redden, Isanya Reed, Neil McCulley, Tom Lanzillotta.
Yes, and thank you to Cody Patterson, Garrett Collins, Seamus Finlayson, Hey You, Kiefer51, Cox J, Jay Thunder, Brent, A.T. White, Nathan Williams, and Lucas Dosher.
And last but certainly not least, big thank yous to Lee Addison, Laces Out Dan, Lee Drag, Carl Grasso, Jeffrey Gaudreau, Martin D. Hibbets, Shonuff Stephen Bell, Gerard Lavelle, Jeremy Conrad, Timothy Graham, and Simon Brennan.
Thank you all so much for your incredible support of our show. We do not take it for granted, and we are nothing but deeply appreciative to all of our supporters at any level. Thank you all, and hopefully you're joining us this Friday for the conclusion of the Alligator duology.
How could you miss it? I mean, you have to know how it ends.
I have to say, that first show, when I was editing it and listening to the edit, there's a lot of mirth on that show. We have a lot of fun on that show. I'm not going to say whether or not we're laughing with the film or at the film, but we have a lot of fun. So if you're looking for a fun, light-hearted podcast about a Jaws ripoff, about alligators in the sewers, there's only one podcast in the world that can apply to, and that's our review of Alligator 1.
And if you want to talk about good movies, also this weekend, we're having a live Oscar telecast. Alligator 2 comes out on a Friday, and on Sunday, we're going to find out what the best picture of 2025 was, at least according to the Academy. It is kind of becoming a competition. I felt like there was some early runaway, like, oh, this is definitely going to win, and now there's a whole lot of races that are up for grabs.
Indeed. After the Actor Awards, the SAGs, and the BAFTAs, things are back up in the air a little bit. So we'll see what happens. This has been a great year for nominated movies. It's also a short year for nominated movies. Only 50 movies were nominated this year. So it's doable. Unlikely that all of us are going to see all of the short films and things.
I'm going to tell you right now, I bowed out of Elio. I am not ever going to finish that movie.
Yeah, I watched it. I can't remember much of it. I didn't enjoy it. Not my favorite Pixar at all. But look, it's a good year for movies overall. So if nothing else, and most of them are still available, try to see as many as you can. And I bet you've probably already seen a handful of them. Definitely come out and check our live stream on Sunday.
Starting at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on the Now Playing Podcast YouTube channel. And don't forget our Oscars bracket. You have until Saturday at noon. If you head to nowplayingpodcast.com, banner at the top will take you to a link to a Google form for our Oscars bracket. You pick on who you think is going to win, and the person who gets the most right will get a year to our full access Patreon level, our entire archive of bonus shows going back to 2010, 16 years of bonus shows, and getting it for another whole year. So all the bonus shows we do for the next full year as well, plus an autographed copy of our book, Underrated Movies We Recommend. And second place is going to get platinum access for a year, as well as a copy of our book. So head to nowplayingpodcast.com, fill out the bracket. You do not have to join us for the live stream to win these prizes, because I may not know who the winners are during the live stream. I have math to do, but we hope you can fill that out too and have some fun.
And I will be filling out a bracket, and ideally we'll publish it after the deadline, so you'll all know what I have for the record up front, so we can play along as well, because obviously I'm ineligible to win the prize.
Yeah, we're not going to give it to you, Brock. Sorry.
I mean, you already have the prize. You have the autographed book and you get all the shows. So what can we give you?
Yeah, that's true, but I will fill out the bracket and play along with you all as well, and perhaps maybe our other hosts will do so.
Great. I love all of these things. One more thing to mention, as if that weren't enough. Next Tuesday, join us. Even if you can't join us for all these additional things, for free on Tuesday, we are headed back to one of our most popular universes, a galaxy not so far away, but is now on Disney Plus. we are covering Star Wars again. In the lead up to the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, we are covering most of the Disney Plus Star Wars series in some kind of chronological order that the Star Wars fans on this podcast will understand. It means starting with The Acolyte, a show from 2 years ago that was received so badly it will not get another season.
Yes, was that deserved? Was that political? We will discuss that all next Tuesday. Hopefully, the listeners and the Force will be with us as we do Star Wars almost every week, all the way up to Mando and Grogu. So thank you all for listening. Hopefully, when it comes to joining us for future podcasts, you don't say you'd prefer not to. And until then, follow your dream. It's the key to everything.
Splendid, marvellous, brilliant drama. Can we go now?
Thank you for listening to this Now Playing Podcast movie review.
There is nothing left to do now but live.
We hope you enjoyed the show.
That's something to remember, isn't it?
Help us spread the word about this show by leaving a 5-star review on Stitcher, Podbean, iTunes, or your podcast store of choice.
You must trust me, and you must obey me.
I will not obey you! I will not!
Want more reviews like this one? In the archives section of NowPlayingPodcast.com, you'll find more than 1,000 in-depth movie reviews from our panel of hosts.
I've been around the world a time or two, and I've travelled with many men for a long way or a short way, and I can't say I've ever had better company than I've had with you.
On our site, you can hear reviews for every installment in the world's biggest film franchises, including the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Star Wars, Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, James Bond, Middle-earth, Jurassic Park, Fast and Furious, and Transformers.
How far can we go?
As far as you like.
Plus, we have individual movie reviews, such as Titanic, E.T., Inception, Big Hero 6, Ready Player One, Pulp Fiction, Apocalypse Now, Doctor Strangelove, and hundreds more.
I think we're going to like it.
And come back to NowPlayingPodcast.com next Tuesday for another all-new movie review podcast.
Until death do us part.
Support from listeners like you keeps Now Playing Podcast on the air.
Can anybody help me? Please.
You can donate directly by tapping the support button at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
Will you do something? Will you do something?
And you can join our crowdfunding campaign for early access to new episodes, exclusive reviews, and bonus reviews.
It's the key to everything. Dream.
Now Playing Podcast is produced by Arnie Carvalho.
You didn't create me! You didn't create me!
As a matter of fact, I did.
Associate produced by Jason Latham.
Everything we did it on purpose.
Now Playing is edited by Santiago and Arnie.
We dug you up and we brought you back to life.
The opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the views of Venganza Media Incorporated.
We're but children picking up shells beside the great unexplored ocean of the truth.
Venganza Media Incorporated is not affiliated with, and this podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by any entity that created the film analyzed herein. All movie clips and music included in this podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. They are included here for the purpose of review, and no infringement is intended.
There's a lesson to be learnt here, and I hope to God I never learn it.
Now Playing Podcast is an exclusive trademark of and may not be used without the express written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
What are you sorry for? Did you do something wrong? Something you thought you might get away with?
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2026, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated. All rights reserved.
Mobsters.
Who this voice of his, though, that he does? I mean, he is Irish, British. He is from the UK area. He is some kind of European. What is he?
What are you doing? I don't know what he is. He's not one of them Americans.
UK area. I love it. Love it.
Let me just say this again. I can't decide if Mary Shelley possesses this prostitute.
Yes.
Coincidentally
No.
or intentionally.
Intentionally.
Yes.
Knowing that the prostitute is minutes from death.
Let's dig into this.
Yes.
You guys are answering the question before I asked because you didn't know what question I was asking.